most of them can't see view the slides.
Oh, again, sorry, my apologies. Okay, I hope you can see the slide now, sorry. Yeah, I talked about the timeline, so I just repeat that. So we're in August, so phase 2, 1st September. The products will be on Omni AG, except for Smart Business Traveler, because it's a group under company that is manual submission. But for the other individual products, it will be on Omni AG. Okay, so until then, those ex-AGI agents who still have iLink, you can continue status quo until 1st September. Then you have to move to Omni AG. Yeah, I also mentioned this, so you will see this is the cover for our brochure. On the left is the one for single trip, and on the right is the one for annual. So both are Smart Traveler Enhanced. So we have single and annual plan. Okay, just to touch on the key points for the single trip. The brochure is in the Partner Center. If you go to the website, it's at the bottom right of the website. You search for Partner Center under Sales Material. You will see all the sales material for all the different products, and travel is in there. Yeah. Okay, so for Smart Travelers Enhanced Single Trip, so the standard plan covers insureds aged 30 days to 64 years. That's for the standard plan. And for those aged 65 to 80, they can only purchase the senior plan, which has a slightly different cover for medical expenses and the personal accident. We also have a family plan, which includes insured spouse, and all their children up to 23 years old if studying full-time. Yeah. Another key point is that our travel coverage must commence from Malaysia. Okay, we have had quite a number of questions on this. Person is based overseas. Can they buy Smart Traveler Enhanced traveling from wherever they are outside of Malaysia? The answer is no. So trip must commence from Malaysia. Key benefits, just to highlight, these are the key benefits in different sections. So I'll run through in more detail on the sections for PA, medical, evacuation and repatriation, and the travel inconvenience. Just to highlight some of the special covers we have included in the product is scuba diving, skiing, winter sports, parachuting, skydiving, bungee jumping, and hot air ballooning. These are some of quite common leisure activities that people do on their trips nowadays. So we have made this as a special cover that is included in the policy. For pandemic cover, it is an add-on. So the standard product does not cover any pandemic cover, i.e. COVID, unless the add-on is purchased. Yeah, I'll also go through in more detail the add-ons and specifically the pandemic cover. Okay, for annual plan, for standard plan is also 30 to 64 years. Senior plan is 65 to 75. So do note that the annual plan, the maximum is 75. Yeah, single trip can go up to 80 years old, but for annual plan, it's only up to 75 years old. There's also a family plan, and for annual, there's option of plan 1 and plan 2. So plan 2 is the one with higher sum insured coverage. So both can automatically covers you overseas. Both actually overseas travel cover only. And if the person wants domestic cover, it's an add-on as well. So normally I think most of us will buy travel insurance to cover our trip overseas, but I'll explain to you when would you recommend it to also purchase the domestic cover add-on. So for annual plan, do recommend for your customers who are frequent travelers. Generally, it's more than 4 trips a year. They will be more economical for them to buy an annual plan. Okay, just to highlight this purpose of travel is a definition from the policy wording. So this product is mainly for travel for leisure or business purpose only. Yeah. Okay. So travel for business here includes attending meetings, seminars, talks, courses, events related to the insured person's business, and does not include secondment. Secondment is you're posted overseas for work, short-term or long-term posting, or projects or any other similar activity. So basically, it's meant for short-term leisure or business purpose, as mentioned here in the policy wording. So also stated here, the purpose of travel, that means it does not cover if just the travel purpose of travel is to obtain medical treatment, vaccination, medical checkup, or medical care. Okay, just to share because we do get questions on this. Okay, these are just the sections in the policy. So section 1, 2, 3, and up to 6. Section, the last one being the add-ons. I'll go through each and every section and the benefits for each section. This first section is the personal accident, which covers accidental death and permanent disablement. Yeah. So you can see here the standard plan is 350, and then the senior plan is half of the standard plan. If it's a bit small, you can zoom in or you can refer to the brochure. These are basically taken from the brochure. So don't worry if you cannot see here, maybe a bit small, but once these are all from the brochures, you can see standard plan, senior plan, and the family plan in the brochure. So there's single trip, and then there is annual in the second table with annual plan 1, which is a lower limit, and annual plan 2. Okay, a child education basically pays for this lump sum in the event of accidental death or permanent disablement to the insured. Sorry, accidental death only, sorry. Child education only from accidental death. Okay, under medical benefits. So do note that the travel policy is all based on reimbursement claims, yeah? Even for medical and hospital treatment expenses, okay? So this first section covers for reimbursed expenses, including cost of emergency dental treatment incurred due to, is due to accident or sickness, yeah? So if you do fall ill and you need to see a doctor during a trip, this can be claimed back by reimbursement. Compassionate visitation, there are 2 here. One is due to hospitalization of the insured person, and also one here you can see it also compassionate visitation due to insured person death. So the first one pays for additional expenses of relative or friend required based on medical advice that to travel or remain behind with you because you are hospitalized. As for insured person death, basically if somebody needs to come in to arrange for your burial or cremation, then we cover the expenses for that person to help arrange all this in the event of the insured person's death. Alternative medicine is also picked up under this policy, which is similar to our PA policies. There is also childcare benefit, pays for additional expenses of a relative or friend to take care of your children in the event that insured is hospitalized. It covers the cost of the economy class ticket as well. Medical treatment in Malaysia, this policy also allows to pick up for the cost of treatment for the initial treatment overseas. Then you come back, you can still claim up to 90 days for additional treatment when you're back in Malaysia. And the treatment must be done within 90 days from your return to Malaysia. There's also hospital allowance, which pays 350 ringgit per day in the event that you are hospitalized. For every 24 hours you're hospitalized, then that's 350 ringgit per day hospital allowance. So ours is on reimbursement basis for medical expenses and also for the other travel inconveniences claims. It's on the reimbursement basis. Okay, these are the limits for the single trip. Again, if it's a bit small, this is just from the brochure. So you can refer to the brochure on the limits for each benefit that I went through just now. This one is for the annual. So you see that please note that the senior plan limit is lower than the standard plan limit. Okay, next section is the emergency medical evacuation and repatriation. This limit is unlimited. So what does emergency medical evacuation covers? This covers the emergency transportation and medical care to move you, if you're in a medical critical condition, to the nearest hospital. So that's evacuation. That means if you are had an accident and you're in a critical condition, so this helps to evacuate you to the nearest hospital. Then there's also medical repatriation. Repatriation basically meaning to send you back to Malaysia. So this is in the event the person is hospitalized abroad, but it is medically necessary to bring the person back to Malaysia to continue treatment. So this will pay for the medical repatriation of the person back to Malaysia. Then there's also the repatriation of mortal remains. This pays for the cost of burial or cremation in the locality where the death occurs, or bringing back the body back to Malaysia. Okay, yeah, I think I've seen a lot of questions. Very good. Please, put in your questions in the chat. I'm just looking at the last one here. When will the policy end? Basically, the policy starts from the time you leave your residence or place of business to go for your trip with a maximum time limit of 24 hours. Yeah. So likewise, returning, it ends from the time you reach your home. For our product, it's all on reimbursement basis. Okay, next section is on personal belongings. So there's three main parts here. One is baggage and personal effects. So it pays for loss or damage to your baggage or personal effects due to theft or negligence of the common carrier. Maximum limit per item, annual item is up to 500 ringgit. Limit per baggage, that means it's only up to 300 ringgit. So in the event you check in your luggage and your luggage comes out as damage to your luggage, the limit per luggage is up to 300 ringgit. Yeah, but please, this needs to be reported to the airline first. It's also key that the report, if you look at the policy requirements, that you still need to make a report that to the airline, to the airport, that your luggage was damaged during the after the flight or during the flight. Okay, next is money and travel documents. This pays for reasonable travel and accommodation expenses to get replacement passports or travel tickets or other relevant documents in the event of theft or robbery. And the loss of money due to theft is covered up to 1,500 ringgit. Yeah, so this requires a police report to be made in the event of theft or robbery. Last one is on baggage delay. Okay, this pays if your checked-in baggage is delayed for more than 6 hours, consecutive hours, upon arrival at your destination abroad. So it does happen that your luggage does end up on the wrong flight, and basically then you contact the airline. The airline will arrange for your luggage to be sent back to you later. So for every 6 hours, you can claim up to 200 ringgit for every 6 consecutive hours that your baggage is delayed. Okay, these are limits for the single trip under the standard plan and senior plan. So you see this, the senior plan will be the same because this is covering their travel belongings. This is for the annual plan. So slightly higher cover under annual plan 2. Yeah. So again, this is from the brochure. Okay, let me just pause here for a bit. There's quite a lot of questions coming in. Okay, thanks for Wan Yin. Yeah, I think my colleagues are helping to answer some of the questions. So I'll carry on just to. So there's quite a lot to cover. Okay, next section is on travel inconveniences. So the first part here is travel delay, overbooked, misconnection, or reroute. This basically pays if this conveyance is delayed from the scheduled departure time. So this can be trains or airlines as well. Okay, so delay I think most of us would have probably experienced a flight delay at any one time in any of our trips. So what this pays once is only if it's more than 6 hours consecutive delay. Yeah? So it pays 200 ringgit for if your conveyance is delayed for every 6 hours. So it's 200 ringgit for every 6 hours. Okay, so first part is the delay. So I think it's quite clear your flight is delayed, but do note there are subject to certain conditions on the policy, which I'll share later. What is the meaning when we say travel delay due to what reasons that is covered? Yeah. So first part is travel delay. Second part is overbooked. This means that the flight is overbooked. I think in Malaysia Airlines or AirAsia doesn't do that so often. But I think foreign airlines in Europe and US, it's very common that the airlines, they will basically overbook a flight. What it means is they will take more orders, more seats, they will sell more seats than they're actually on the flight itself. For example, so if a flight has 300 seats, they may actually sell up to 350 seats, expecting some people to reschedule or move the dates or not turn up. So in the event that maybe everybody turns up for that flight, then that flight is considered overbooked, and then they have to start moving people off the flight and getting people off to another flight because the flight is overbooked. So if you are the unlucky one that is one of those that gets kicked off that flight, then this will pay for every 6 hours later delay, overbook, that they move you to the next flight that is more than 6 hours. Okay, that's overbooked. Missed connection is when your first flight is delayed and you miss the connecting flight. Okay, so a lot of us do for long distance travel, so we normally do have a transit. So you will be taking 2 different flights to get to the final destination. So if the first flight is delayed, then you miss your connecting flight, then this will pick up for the time for every 200 for every 6 hours. Yeah. So normally it's always recommended to take the connecting flight from the same airline because then the airline will be responsible to finding you another flight if your first flight has been delayed. So for example, if you fly Qatar Airways to Europe, for example, so maybe you stop by in Doha. So if your flight from KL to Doha is delayed and you miss your connecting flight from Doha to wherever, like Rome, for example, so it's Qatar's responsibility to find you the next flight to Rome. So they will need to arrange one for you. Okay. So, but in the event that you take separate airlines, then if you miss your second airline due to the first airline being delayed, then the cost of the second airline is not paid. Yeah. So this only covers the time delay. Okay. So it does not pay for your having to purchase another flight because you missed your second flight. Okay. So this only pays for the time for every 6 hours, but not the ticket for missing your connecting flight. Next is cancellation and postponement. This basically is a trip cancellation cover. Cancellation, so basically this covers the irrecoverable travel and accommodation expenses paid in advance due to death, serious injury, or illness to you or your immediate family or a natural disaster at the destination. Okay, provided that the insurance is purchased not less than 14 days prior to the commencement of the trip. So I think there's 2 points here I would like to elaborate. One is the part of the irrecoverable travel expenses and accommodation. So basically, when we travel, we do buy ahead. One is travel tickets, the flight tickets, obviously, then the accommodation as well. So this you can recover in the event of death in an immediate family, or serious injury or illness to you. So if you have a serious illness, the doctor recommends that you not travel. You shouldn't be traveling on your trip, or even to your immediate family. Immediate family is there's a definition in the policy wording, which includes actually siblings and parents as well. So if your immediate family does have a serious illness or injury, then you need to stay back, then this can be picked up under trip cancellation or postponement. Okay, that's the first part. Second part here, you see the 14 days. The policy must be purchased at least 14 days prior to the trip. What we don't want is for people to already know that there is a situation, there is already a illness in the family, or something already happened, natural disaster destination, then only they buy just to claim trip cancellation. So obviously this is not something that we want to cover. So there's a minimum purchase date of at least 14 days prior to the trip that you must have purchased the travel insurance. Then only the trip cancellation and postponement is covered. So one of the things, and cancellation and postponement also includes unexpected strike, riot, and civil commotion at planned destination. Or also if it's a serious damage to your residence due to fire or flood. Within 14 days of your trip. Travel curtailment is slightly different. This covers the irrecoverable prepaid costs if it is necessary and unavoidable to curtail your trip. For the same reason, there is a serious illness or serious injury to immediate family, or natural disaster that you need to cut short your trip and return to Malaysia. So you're halfway through your Europe trip for 3 weeks, then maybe halfway trip, there is a death in the family that you need to come back. Then obviously for those expenses that you've already paid and you cannot recover, you already paid in advance, then you can claim for those paid costs that you have already paid in advance and you cannot recover. Wow, okay, we've reached over 1,000, so there's a cap. So for those who are in here, please remember to register for this session. I think go through the chat and there's the link to register for the session. There will be another session next week. So for those who missed out, do share with them that there is another session going on next week. Yes, we're still at travel delay page because I'm going through in detail on the explanation on the cover. Last one, hijacking. Hijacking. So hijacking, fortunately, does not happen very often. So this pays 1,000 for every 24 hours in the event of hijack. Missed departure pays for the accommodation and travel expenses incurred as a result of strike, industrial action, natural disaster, inclement weather condition, or mechanical breakdown of the public transport, which prevented you from arriving at your outbound airport, port, or station in time. Basically you have a flight, you need to go to the airport, but because of strike, industrial action, or there's a severe weather condition, maybe a typhoon that's going on, or there's a breakdown in the train to the airport. So obviously you are unable to get to the airport in time. So that covers the additional accommodation and travel expenses due to these reasons. So this is the wordings from the travel delay, just to highlight the reasons that is picked up under travel delay. Basically 200 ringgit for every 6 hours if that your flight or train is delayed due to these reasons stated. So it's a natural disaster, inclement weather conditions, and severe weather conditions. It's a strike or industrial action that stops your flight or train, your common carrier, from departing on time as per schedule, or there is a mechanical breakdown. There's an issue with the mechanical issue with the plane or the train, or here in the event of closure of the airport. So these are items that are picked up for travel delay. Okay, this is all just to highlight on cancellation and postponement. I mentioned already on the covers reimbursement on the non-refundable or non-utilized costs, deposits, or charges that you already paid in advance for your trip, which covers your trip package, maybe your entertainment tickets, maybe you've bought tickets for theme park or for any shows. So those are tickets that you paid in advance. If you cancel your trip, then you can get reimbursement for all these items that you've already paid in advance as part of your trip. So here is due to causes beyond the insurance control, which I've mentioned just now. And these are the stated causes beyond the insurance control, right? So you can claim trip cancellation in the event of these situations, yeah. Mentioned earlier, so insured person death in the immediate family, or sole travel companion. So also in injury or serious illness. So we talk about strike, riot, civil commotion at the planned destination. Here, item E is also if you have to appear in court, then you obviously cannot go on a trip. If you summon to court. I also mentioned about your home residence being damaged due to fire, flood, or similar natural disaster occurring at least within 40 days prior to the trip. And also item G is basically severe weather condition or natural disaster at your planned destination within 14 days prior to commencement of the trip. So death of insured person, family, immediate family member or travel company within 30 days prior to the trip. Okay, so yeah, so do take note for trip cancellation. These are the reasons that are picked up for trip cancellation. So continuing on the travel inconvenience, there is the benefit for loss of use for entertainment tickets. Yeah, so I think when we do travel, we do sometimes go for theme parks or maybe some concerts or plays. So this will pick up if you're unable to go for these tourist attractions or concerts due to also the death, hospitalization. If you're hospitalized, obviously you cannot go for your concert, for example, or there is a severe weather condition or natural disaster as well that stops you going to the concert as well. So these can be picked up under the loss of use of entertainment tickets. Yeah. Loss of credit card. This pays for the fraudulent usage of your credit card. There's also personal liability, so which indemnifies you for legal liability towards third parties for damage or injury due to your negligence. We also have rental car access. This pays for the access that you are liable to pay in respect of loss or damage to the rental vehicle during the rental period. For those of you who have actually rented a vehicle when you're traveling overseas, normally when you rent a car, there's always an excess that you need to pay in the event of loss or damage. So this will cover that excess up to the limit of 1,000 for the single trip. Yeah. So there's also ransom payment in the event of kidnapping or hostage when you're outside of Malaysia. Home care, this is basically actually a small token payout in the event your home is home contents damages or lost as a result of burglary or fire when your house is left vacant when you are traveling. Okay, so these are the limits for single trip, for travel delay, overbook, misconnection, or reroute. This is 200 ringgit for every 6 hours of delay of your flight, overbook when your replacement flight when your flight is overbooked, or if you had a misconnection and then your next flight is more than 6 hours, then you can claim 200 ringgit for every 6 hours. Okay, cancellation and postponement is up to 20,000. Same for travel curtailment, you claim up to 20,000 for trip cancellation. For missed departure, that's up to 2,000 ringgit. Okay, so these are also limits for the other ones I mentioned. So rental car access under single trip is 1,000. Loss of use for entertainment tickets is also up to 1,000, and per ticket is 250 ringgit per ticket. So annual plan is also here. I won't go into details. So these are all in the brochure. Okay, next, I'll go through the add-ons. Yeah, we can see here there are quite a number of add-ons that we do offer under Smart Travel Enhanced. First one on the top is golf equipment. So this pays for replacement or repair cost for the loss or damage golf equipment, and also the cost for hiring a replacement golf equipment in the event yours is damaged during the trip. Second one is on sports equipment or musical instruments. This also covers similar to the golf. This is also some request from customers that pays for replacement or repair costs of sports equipment or musical instruments that you carry along for your trip, and also the cost of rehiring the replacement items in the event yours is damaged or lost. Okay, next is on flight cancellation and rescheduling during the trip. Do note that this is different from flight delay. So flight delay, I mentioned just now, those are reasons why when you can cover for flight delay. Okay, flight delay is different from flight cancellation and flight rescheduling. This pays for the also the non-refundable prepaid expenses or deposits paid if you cancel the trip, or pay for an alternative flight ticket as a result of flight cancellation or rescheduling during the trip. I'll go into detail in the next few slides. Cruise cover. Okay, this cruise cover is actually quite special cover for as an add-on. First, there are basically 3 sections to cruise cover. Here, basically, it pays for the additional expenses to join the cruise due to your flight delay that you missed your cruise departure. Okay, so your flight was delayed and you're supposed to get on a cruise, but because of the delay of the flight that you missed getting on your cruise on time. Okay, first one. Okay, next one is in the event that you are hospitalized. We see on land, the cruise would not have that. Cruise would probably give you basic medical help, but in case you are severe and you need to be hospitalized, maybe overnight or 2 days, but then you can still continue to join the cruise at the next port. So this actually pays for the additional expenses for you to rejoin the cruise after you are discharged from hospital. Okay, that's second one. So the third one is actually pays for the flight home in the event of a delay of your cruise. So it does happen as well. So your cruise is late at the final destination for maybe severe weather condition, that the cruise is late at the final destination and you miss your flight home. So that this covers the cost of getting another flight ticket to get home because your cruise was late. Okay, but if you don't buy this add-on, all the other things still covers standard. Okay, so your medical expenses, all the other covers is still covered even though you go on a cruise. So this cruise add-on is specifically to cover those items I just mentioned. There is also medical expenses top up. This, I think earlier we shared the medical expenses standard limit for single trip is 350,000. So you can choose to top up if you think that 350 may not be enough. For example, if you're traveling to the US, maybe can be a bit more expensive in the event of a severe case, then you can choose to buy medical expenses top up just to ensure you're covered for a higher limit in the event of any medical expenses required. There's also option to increase your accidental death or permanent disablement to top up as well by 100,000 ringgit. Yeah. Rather than have put in many plans for customers to choose, I think we just put it here as an add-on. So in case the customers do want a higher limit for accidental death and permanent disablement, then they can just buy the top up. But do note that this top up is not available for senior plans. Yeah, only for open for standard plan. Okay, then second last add-on here is the pandemic exclusion. So this extends trip cancellation, trip curtailment, medical expenses, hospital allowance, the emergency evacuation, repatriation, and covers if you are diagnosed with a pandemic illness. So basically, this extends those these covers to include pandemic illness. I'll go into more detail in the next few slides. And then we also have the domestic travel extension. Okay. Right, maybe I'll speed up a little bit because already 10:50. Yeah. So annual as well as the same, has the same add-ons with the exception of there's no option to top up accidental death and permanent disablement because we already have two plans. One with the higher plan that covers up to 600,000 ringgit for ADPD. And these are limits for the add-ons. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, so I just want to highlight this add-on is for specific for flight cancellation and rescheduling, which is different from flight delay. What happens is this is the airline will sometimes cancel or reschedule your flight, but they normally they will actually, it is the responsibility of the airline to provide another flight if they cancel the first flight or they need to reschedule the timing of your flight. Okay. So this pays for in the event that your flight has been cancelled or rescheduled and you already paid, for example, the accommodation or some other package that you've paid in advance, and because of your flight was cancelled or rescheduled, then you the flight could have been rescheduled to the next day. Then you already paid accommodation, for example, in advance. Then you can get reimbursement for the accommodation that was not used because your flight was rescheduled. Okay. And this is only for during the trip which has started I actually had my personal experience with Air Asia also. They did reschedule my flight, but it was a morning flight, which I was the preferred one, but then they rescheduled it to a afternoon flight. Okay, but they still give me an option, but I took the midday flight. They're still actually going to their website and actually change it from the afternoon one that they kicked me to. So I moved it, chose one that was in the afternoon. So here I didn't make any loss. There's no effect on my trip. So obviously I didn't make any loss. So I didn't claim for this. But in the event that they could have moved me to a flight on the next day, then obviously I would have paid one night accommodation. Then I would have claimed for that accommodation that I have missed. Okay, but it's the responsibility of the airline to inform the insured normally before, at least 1 or 2 days before a trip or the cancellation. So this is in the event of during the trip that this happens, then you can claim for the unutilized portions. Okay, so for pandemic cover, this is for overseas. So pandemic, this is the definition for pandemic. So in the event of any pandemic, so we are not restricting it to COVID. Yeah. So here we're actually wider and to cover a pandemic cover. So currently it's still the main one is COVID. So COVID will be picked up if you purchase the pandemic cover add-on. So as mentioned, so the extension for this pandemic cover extends to cover trip cancellation due to pandemic illness, and also trip curtailment, disruption due to pandemic. That means you cut short your trip, or your trip is disrupted due to the pandemic. Here it also extends to cover medical treatment due to the pandemic illness, also hospital allowance in the event you're hospitalized due to the pandemic. Also extends to cover evacuation, repatriation, medical repatriation, and also repatriation of mortal remains. So this does not, so when you say one-way journeys are not applicable, so this does not cover for one-way trips, one-way journeys that you can opt to buy for travel insurance. You can actually buy a one-way cover. This is in the event for students going overseas to study, or people who are emigrating overseas, then you can just buy a one-way cover because you don't need to purchase a longer-term trip, return trip. These are the limits that are applied to the pandemic cover. These are actually basically the standard limits on the standard cover. Okay, so we mentioned trip cancellation limit is 20,000, right, for standard plan under the single trip. So the same limit applies in the event of trip cancellation due to pandemic. Brochure or in the policy wording, but just want to highlight that the pandemic add-on which is extended to cover under the standard limits. Okay, so follows the limit as per your plan that you've purchased. That it extends to cover pandemic. So trip cancellation due to pandemic, these are the coverage in the how you would be covered under trip cancellation due to pandemic. The reimbursement basis is the same. Obviously, the non-refundable, non-utilized, or charges that you've already paid in advance for your trip, but your trip is cancelled due to pandemic illness here. So if the insured is diagnosed with the pandemic illness and certified unfit to travel by the doctor, medical practitioner. Yeah. Here is actually very wide, within 60 days prior to the trip. It also covers if your immediate family member is diagnosed with the pandemic illness within 30 days prior to the trip, as well as if your sole travel companion is diagnosed with the pandemic illness as well. Death is very obvious, or death to an insured person's immediate family member due to pandemic. Okay, these are reasons when you can claim trip cancellation due to pandemic up to 20,000 ringgit. Yeah. So you cannot claim, even though you've purchased a pandemic add-on, you cannot claim trip cancellation when it is purely out of concern for safety. Yeah. So if suddenly there's a COVID spike in Japan, for example, then I'm scared, I don't want to go. Obviously, this is not picked up under the, you cannot claim cancellation just because you are concerned, okay? Second is also if it's any advisory as well. This is also not picked up. And the 14 days also applies that if the policy is being issued less than 14 days prior to the trip, then trip cancellation benefit is not applicable. So likewise, for trip curtailment, disruption due to pandemic. So trip cancellation, trip curtailment does not apply for one way. Because it's not a return journey. So one way ends at from the time the person reaches the airport and the final residence. That's one way journey. Okay. So in the event of your trip is disrupted or curtailed, cut short due to these reasons, which is if the insured is diagnosed with the pandemic illness and not certified to continue with the trip. Likewise, death or hospitalization of immediate family due to, or a sole travel companion due to pandemic illness. Also, if your trip is disrupted due to cancellation of scheduled public transport due to the pandemic illness, or an outbreak of the pandemic at the planned destination, which prevents you from continuing your trip. So if your next destination has a sudden outbreak of the pandemic, then obviously you cannot go to that planned destination, then you have to incur additional costs to continue your stay where you are, and you cannot continue on to your remaining part of your trip because of the outbreak at the next destination that you're going to. So this can be claimed under trip curtailment or disruption. So likewise, also if the airport is closed at the planned destination due to a pandemic. Yeah. So here, do note that we do not cover any costs related to quarantine. Yeah. So it's important to note that our pandemic add-on does not cover any costs related to quarantine. Right, again, just to highlight, so pandemic is not covered unless the add-on is purchased. COVID is still considered a pandemic. It's not been declared an endemic yet. So for those who want to cover COVID, they would need to purchase this add-on. Yeah, it has not been officially declared an endemic. Right, okay, 11 o'clock. Okay, okay. Next, I'll move on to talk about the domestic travel extension under the our Smart Travel Enhanced. So you can opt to extend to cover domestic travel, which means also travel for leisure and business purpose within Malaysia during your transit before your overseas trip. So this covers, there's a separate limit for the domestic travel extension, yeah, which is all in the brochure and in the policy wording. So it basically covers the same sections: PA, medical benefits, personal belongings, or also travel inconvenience. Yeah, but it's a different limit applies for the domestic portion. These are the limits in the brochure. So you just check out through the brochure. Okay, why would you recommend a domestic travel extension to your insureds? This is mainly for those maybe travel a bit further away from KLIA, perhaps those from East Malaysia, Sabah and Sarawak, where KLIA is where the main hub for international flights are from. So if you do travel to Europe, you will still need to fly in from, if you're in KK, you need to fly into KLIA to take your flight to Europe, for example. Yeah. But maybe you choose to extend 3 days in KL because you have friends or relatives you may want to visit as part of since you're already coming to KL for your trip to Europe, maybe you stop by 3 days in KL to meet up with family or friends. Then that's when you buy this domestic travel extension that will cover you while you are in KL. It means it's part of your overall trip that you extend to cover the domestic portion of your trip. Okay, otherwise, it does not cover domestic part of your trip. If you did not buy this, then when you are in KL, anything happens, it does not pick up under the Smart Travel Enhanced unless the add-on is purchased. Okay, so these are limits. It covers PA medical expenses due to accident causes only for medical expenses under the domestic cover. Yeah. So there is also baggage delay and also travel delay in your misconnection as well. Here, let me just answer the last question. Travel to KL, from KL to Singapore, normally the cover for our trip starts for Smart Travel and overseas is from the time you leave your residence and within 24 hours that you go for your flight overseas. So it's within the 24 hours, then you're safe. Okay, I'll touch on the important notes. So for domestic travel, it's only covered if it's add-on included in the policy. Stamp duty applies for all policies. However, the service tax only applies if the domestic travel is included. For standard overseas policy, there is no service tax. Okay, because it's the overseas covered, then service tax does not apply for overseas travel. Okay, so some key points for the single trip. Do note the sanctioned countries changes because that again depends on the geopolitical situation around the world. So that generally will change. Okay, so in terms of the sanctioned countries, that's not covered. Yeah. So do take note that is we will update in the system. Okay. Who is eligible to purchase? Basically, Malaysians, PRs, and any Malaysian employment pass, work permit holders, those basically even expats who are based in Malaysia, those with valid work permit or employment pass. Yeah, so it covers those Malaysians, permanent residents, and those who are working here with legally employment pass or work permit holders. Yeah. We talked about the age already. Okay, keynote here for single plan, maximum period of coverage is 190 days. Okay, so please note for single plan, the maximum period of coverage is 190 days. For the annual plan, yep, so same residents and those based legally in Malaysia. For period of coverage under the annual plan, annual trip is 95 days only for the annual plan, yeah. But it's unlimited number of trips in a year. Okay, so once you buy the annual plan, it covers all your unlimited number of trips in a year, but maximum per trip coverage is only 95 days, yeah. And the maximum for annual plan is 75 years old. Okay. Okay, just to highlight, these are some of the general exclusions in our travel policy. So obviously pre-existing conditions is the standard exclusion, pregnancy, childbirth, abortion. Okay. any sports or games as a professional, then that's excluded. So to run through the policy wording, is I know policy wording is quite long, but to read through, I always recommend to read through the policy wording. Yeah? So these are the exclusions. So anxiety, stress, mental nervous disorders are also excluded. So we get a lot of questions on mountaineering. So that is also excluded when mountaineering requires the climbing equipment, ropes, or guides. Any outdoor rock climbing is also excluded. Likewise, if it's hiking or trekking in remote or uncharted areas without any guides or registered qualified licensed personnel or guide for any hiking or trekking in remote areas. Yeah. So extreme sports exclusion. Okay. So exclusion, the first one here of any activity involving you being airborne is generally excluded, but we have put back in parachuting, bungee jumping, skydiving, hot air balloon ride. So these are covered because we have put it back as special cover in the policy. So for persons for a leisure trip, they extend to cover skydiving, or they want to do bungee jumping or sit on a hot air balloon ride. So those are already standard cover, part of cover. But any other activities that involves you being airborne, those are basically exclusion because those are generally more extreme activities already, which is very high risk. Okay, so this will be shared. So please do take note. These are all from the policy wording in terms of the general exclusions. Yeah. Okay, that's on the overseas travel products. So we actually do have two domestic travel products, which is the Smart Traveller Easy Domestic Single Trip and the Jom Local Travel PA. Okay. So I'll touch on Jom Local Travel PA first. This is basically for road trips. This product was developed during MCO when there's no international travel and people were doing mostly local travel and a lot of road trips within Malaysia. So this is designed for that. So it covers accidental death, accidental permanent disablement, accidental medical expenses, also extends to cover food poisoning and local ambulance fees. There is also repatriation, loss of mobile phone due to theft or robbery, e-wallet, digital wallet protection, loss of credit card, and also trip cancellation. And we also add in special cover called Journeys Disruption. This pays for towing due to vehicle breakdown, minor roadside repairs, or when your car needs to be sent to the workshop, then it's alternative transportation to get to your destination. And also rental car access up to 1,000 ringgit. Yeah. Okay. So here you can buy as an individual based on the day bands. So if you're going on a few day trip up to 3 days, then you can buy an individual, or for all passengers within the car, 35 ringgit, or for larger vehicles with covers up to 7 passengers, it's 50 ringgit. So this is also in the brochure, maybe a bit small on the screen, but this is in the Jom Local Travel PA brochure. Yeah. Next, the other domestic travel product is the Smart Traveller Easy Domestic Single Trip. This is like an overseas cover. They cover the main benefits, which is quite a lot of benefits in this product, but it's only for travel within Malaysia. Okay, so this will be actually good for those who are flying between East and West Malaysia, because it has the death, medical expenses, hospital allowance, personal belongings. This is, yeah, so it's small on the screen right now, but it's all also in the brochure. So I won't go into detail. These are the covers in the brochure. These are the limits available. So in terms of baggage, personal effects, also similar cover. We have also money, travel documents, travel delay, loss of deposit or cancellation as well. Also extends to cover trip curtailment. Okay, so do have a look at the brochure for Smart Traveller Easy Domestic for your customers doing local travel. Okay, one special benefit that is part of cover under our domestic travel product is trip cancellation. This is already part of cover under the domestic travel product. Okay, so this pays for the also non-refundable, non-utilized, non-transferable deposits that you paid in advance for your trip due to pandemic. So you can see that the cover is very similar to the add-on under the overseas one, which covers the injured person who is diagnosed with pandemic illness, because you can claim for trip cancellation. Also extends to cover if the immediate family member is diagnosed with the pandemic illness. Also the sole travel companion, also death to pandemic or death to insured family member due to the pandemic. Okay. So coverage for both are similar. Just take note of the slightly different days that's applicable for the different products. The bottom one is for Jom local travel. So the main one is the limits for number of days that's picked up prior to the trip. So for domestic travel, these two products, you don't need to buy pandemic cover, because it's already part of cover to cover trip cancellation due to pandemic. Okay. So it only covers the trip cancellation, yeah, for pandemic. So likewise, can I claim trip cancellation if the cancellation is purely out of concern for safety, or there's any travel advisory issued? So only covers based on what I mentioned earlier. So do note that the 14 days applies to condition applies to Smart Travel Easy, whereas for Jom local travel, because it's more of a road trip, then the condition is trip cancellation is covered if it's issued within 7 days of the trip date. Okay, so policy must be issued at least 7 days for Jom local, and the standard 14 days applies also to Smart Traveller Easy Domestic. Medical for pandemic, under domestic, no. Domestic cover, there's not, medical expenses only covers for accidental, for accidents only. For domestic cover, the medical expenses only covers for accidents, yeah. So that is the same for the overseas one, and for the domestic cover, it only covers for accidental medical expenses. Jom local travel, yes, is for self-drive, basically for road trips. Self-drive, yeah, includes, yeah, so it includes rental car as well. Okay, so for Smart Travel Easy Domestic, yes, travel is within Malaysia. Again, this eligibility is for Malaysians and those legally employed in Malaysia. Cover up to 80 years old, and also there is a family plan as well. So coverage is up to 31 days for the Smart Travel Easy Domestic. For Jom local, this is mode of travel is only for overland, so it's within Malaysia. Also up to 18 years old and up to 15 days period of coverage. Okay. The last one I will be talking about is Smart Business Traveller. Okay, this is an annual plan. So this is basically targeted at your customers who are running a business, maybe the SME owners, or even for larger corporates that they want to have a plan that covers their staff who travel regularly for business. Yeah. So coverage ups similar to our annual plan, 18 to 75. So key benefits are PA, medical expenses, travel inconvenience, with special cover for uh, alternative employee resumption of assignment, key employee recruitment fee, theft of electronic equipment, business property, and also golf equipment. Add-ons include flight cancellation, rescheduling, and also domestic travel extension. Uh, do note that this is not in Omni AG because it's for corporates and it's basically for large groups, and it can be on a name and unnamed basis. Yeah, so this is it's a separate form for this to fill up. Okay, so this is for manual submission and not on Omni AG for Smart Business Traveler. So this policy requires a minimum of 5 persons to be covered under this policy. I mentioned earlier, it can be on a name and unnamed basis. Each trip duration, this standard of Smart Traveler annual, it means cover is only up to 95 days, and trip must start and end in Malaysia. So your target segment is for businesses and SME owners to cover themselves or their staff who have to do business travel. So they are basically two plans, standard and executive, with the personal accident cover 250 or 500,000, and medical expenses 100,000 and 300,000, depending on which plan. So hospital allowance, emergency medical evacuation and repatriation, and also the travel inconvenience. These are also part of cover in the Smart Business Travel. It's very similar to Smart Traveler Enhanced, but do note the limits are slightly different, and it applies for business minimum of 5 packs to be picked up under this policy. So the insured will be the company. Yeah. Okay. Here I want to highlight the special cover. So on top of similar benefits to Smart Traveler Enhanced, there are a few special covers. So first one being the alternative employee and resumption of assignment. So this first one is alternative employee expenses. So this is the expenses incurred to send a person, a substitute person, to finish the business or to work. If the first person is seriously ill or injured, okay, so you need to send another person to complete the first person task overseas. Or so it's either alternative employee expenses or resumption assignment expenses. So basically, pays for reasonable and necessary expenses incurred in returning the assignment within 45 days of returning. Basically, the person needs to cut short, comes back to Malaysia, then this pays for the additional cost to send the person back to continue to resume his assignment within 45 days after returning to Malaysia. Second one is the key employee recruitment fee. This reimburses the policyholder of a recruitment of replacement key employees in the event of the person accidental death or permanent disablement due to an accident while overseas. So basically, the cost of replacing the key employee that unfortunately died or had permanent disablement while on his business trip overseas. Yeah. Next, it also covers reimbursement for loss damage. Foreigner doing business, this is for Malaysians, and basically again applies to Malaysians or legally working here. So as a work permit based here, that means your base is from Malaysia, so your flight has to start from and come back to Malaysia. Yeah. So here this covers reimbursement for loss of damage to business electronic equipment. This is basically covering the business equipment belonging to the company, which includes computers, laptop, notebook, mobile phones that actually belongs to the company. Policy holder here is the company. Yeah? So basically your company property, in the event that it is stolen due to theft or damage due to attempted theft, okay, or negligence of the common carrier, then this can be picked up under this section under for reimbursement for loss damage to business electronic equipment. And it also extends to cover golf equipment as well, up to 5,000 under the executive plan. Okay, flight cancellation rescheduling is similar to Smart Travel Enhanced, so this is also an add-on to Smart Business Traveler. Okay, so some important notes. It's an annual plan, so coverage is only 1 year, and annual renewal is required. Can be a named or unnamed basis with a minimum of a headcount of 5 packs. Yeah, so do note that the some of the limits will reduce in the event the insured reaches 65. Okay, here highlighted here is okay. The last point here: benefits provided under this plan applies for business only for business purpose and incidental personal travel. As we already said, this is a smart business traveler, so basically it covers for the staff that goes on business trips for attending events, meetings, client visits. Yeah, but perhaps some may take the opportunity for overseas business trip that they may do some incidental travel on their own. Perhaps they would travel for over 2 weeks, maybe the weekend they do some of their own personal travel. So this is covered, but up to a maximum of 5 days. So I call incidental personal travel is picked up. Okay, this is actually supposed to cover only for a business trip, but we understand that people do take some additional time to do some personal travel in between work on a weekend. So we do allow this up to a maximum of 5 days. Okay. But this is not applicable for domestic trip. Some important notes: again, stamp duty applies, and 6% will be applicable if domestic extension is included. Otherwise, for standard overseas travel, then the service tax does not apply. Five days per trip for incidental travel. It's 5 days per trip. So it's, some business may be lucky enough to send a person over to US for a conference, maybe a 5-day conference. Then they take the extension few days, so that few days up to maximum of 5 days to do their own personal travel as part of their business travel. So maximum of 5 days per trip. Okay. Thank you. So yeah, this basically covers our main travel products. It is quite a lot, so hopefully most of your questions have been answered. We will compile it as well. There is another session next week. Those who missed out, do let your friends or agents who have missed out this session. There's one next week, so you can ask them to join the session. It will be a repeat of today's one because we try to cover at least the key points of our travel product. But do